Well, to self-righteous co-eds like Jen Psaki, these are not real concerns. They're just more bitching from a peasant class that doesn't understand what's good for them. In the end, they'll accept it. They'll have to. Just as they'll have to accept inflation as a permanent feature of the American economy, which, by the way, newsflash, it is. Yes, inflation's real. It's not transitory like they told us. Here's one way to describe what that means. According to the official numbers, unless you got a 6.2% pay raise this year, and you probably didn't, but let's say you did, you lost money. Thanks to inflation, you got a pay cut, because that's how much inflation has risen. You see all around you, price of hamburger up by nearly $1. A pound of bacon goes from $5.70 to $7, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, across every class of consumer products. And real estate is far worse than that. Try to buy a house. Try to buy a used car. Bottom line, economists have not measured inflation like what we're seeing now in decades. So the question is, why is it happening? Lots of obfuscation on that question, but it's pretty obvious. Like rising energy prices, inflation is not an act of God. We have inflation because the geniuses in charge have put too much money into circulation. It is that simple. The more US dollars floating around, the less those dollars are worth. That's the whole story. Anyone can understand it. Larry Summers is the former Treasury Secretary. He spelled it out back in February when Joe Biden's last $1 trillion spending bill passed. Watch.
I think there's a real possibility that within the year, we're going to be dealing with the most serious incipient inflation problem that we have faced in the last 40 years.
That doesn't sound good. They wanted to ignore him, but you can't. It's Larry Summers. He ran Harvard. He's a loyal Democrat. You can't just blow him off. So instead, the White House attacked him. Joe Biden's chief economic advisor, Jared Bernstein, declared that Larry Summers was, quote, flat out wrong. So with that settled, flat out wrong, the administration just kept printing money. How much? Well, according to numbers from the Federal Reserve, between March of 2020 and last month, the total amount of U.S. dollars increased by 36%. 36%. It's hard to find a precedent for that. A moment ago, we told you that the official inflation rate was just over 6%, 6.2. But if the money supply has increased by 36%, can that really be true? Do the math. No, of course it's not true. And every sophisticated person knows that it's not true. The actual inflation rate is much, much higher than 6.2%. Why do you think so many rich people are buying cryptocurrency? Because they know what inflation means. Why are equities up so high? Inflation. And by the way, not to wreck your night, we'll stop after this, but consider one last number. If you count just the US dollars in active circulation and sitting in checking accounts, our money supply has increased by 336% in the last year and a half. Is that sustainable? Come on. No, it's not. Look at the effects of it. Inflation is not spread evenly across the country. Notice the coastal areas on the map. That's where the Biden voters live. Those areas are yellow. That means less inflation for them. But the middle of the country, bright red. That means costs are going up much faster there. That means the people who can least afford it are getting hit the hardest. What's that look like in political terms? Well, this is what it looks like. A total of 23 states have official inflation rates over 6.5%. Of those 23, 18 of them voted for Donald Trump in the last election. Wonder why the White House isn't worried about inflation? That's why. Here's Joe Biden's chief of staff explaining that actually, if we want to beat inflation, what we really need to do is print a lot more money.
The Build Back Better bill is the best answer we have to bring those costs down. By the way, it also does it without adding a penny to the federal debt it's fully paid for, and without raising a penny of taxes on families making less than $400,000 a year.
Has there ever been a stupider person? That's a metaphysical question. We can't answer it within the confines of a cable news show. But just assess the text of what he said. The administration boasts it will spend $1.75 trillion and will do so without raising taxes. How do you do that? It sounds like magic. Well, here's how they do it. They print the money out of nothing. So that means $1.75 trillion new dollars dumped into the system. That new money dilutes the value of every existing dollar, very much including the dollars you own because you earned them. That's called inflation. Can it go on forever? Well, there's a limit to how long any government can do this. At some point, maybe sooner than you think, the currency collapses. The Build Back Better people will have wrecked the US dollar, and that will be their crowning achievement.